chart here. So again, this article is from Zach Alberti from On3. Great article here. And I figure we just kind of go over it and discuss, do we agree with it? Are we surprised by some of it? And, we'll go from there. First order of business, obviously starting quarterback, we got Graham Mertz. That's going to be his lock over Jack Miller. I think we all expect that, especially, again, with Jaden Hill saying you guys are going to be surprised. I don't think it's even up for a debate, even though it hasn't been solidified yet from Billy's mouth. It's got to be an absolute lock, especially with what we saw during the spring game. Dave?
Yeah, I mean, Graham Mertz was the chosen quarterback out of the transfer portal. Obviously, we saw Jack Miller in the bowl game. But it wasn't really a fair advantage for Jack Miller, considering all the guys that defected and obviously the kids going to the draft, all that other kind of stuff. So you got to kind of give Jack Miller a little bit of a pass for that. But obviously, Graham Mertz with a lot more college experience, probably the higher rated quarterback in high school, did really well in his Under Armour All-American game. Obviously, didn't have the best time over there at Wisconsin, didn't have the best offensive line either. But now he gets a new start, gets a new offensive line, gets some new weapons around him. I'm really curious to see what he can do.
Yeah, no, I think I'm excited. I think it's almost at a point where the negative news of Graham has been so persuaded the other way. I mean, people are coming out with all kinds of articles and videos about how messed up the quarterback situation or quarterback room is at Florida. You got to feel like, hey, things are going to turn to the right direction. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, then we got next the running back position. We know who it is.
That's our Tennessee buddy.
Where's that? Oh, talking about it? Yeah. For running back room, it's going to be Montrell and Trevor. Now, who's going to be the number one guy? I don't think it's going to be a lock. I think that they're going to be a 1-2 punch, obviously, but who's going to be the one? I think it's going to be with a hot hand on that particular day. I think either one of them have the ability to take over and be the guy. I think Montrell showed a lot of, obviously leadership. Trevor, being his first year, his freshman year, had a few mistakes, fumbling the ball, but he was able to bounce back pretty quickly. But look, I think Trevor's going to be having a bigger season. His focus is a lot more. I think he's hungrier to be even better. So that excites me. The running back room is going to be electric as long as, that line stays healthy and put together.
Yeah, look, I'll say this. I mean, from a standpoint of
at
the running back position on the outside looking in, we saw what Florida did to Florida State in November with Richardson having a subpar game. Those two running backs were able to really kind of take control of that game. I think that's going to be a huge part of how productive and how efficient and successful as a team the Gators will be. I mean, look, if you guys can run the ball successfully, you don't have to spread them out. You don't have to go into any type of heavy package. If you're able to just use that running back duo week in, or to just play in, play out, different packages for each one, that'll make Mertz hands down, a better quarterback by himself. Just from having that ability to turn around and hand the ball off to two, what I would consider 5-star guys.
Dave?
Yeah, man, I'm really excited, especially for Trevor. And I know that's a good 1-2 punch with Montrell Johnson and ETN there, but ETN, I think I posted a stat earlier there on Twitter this weekend, and that was there was only 3 running backs within the past decade that have averaged over 6.1 yards per rush and rushed over 500 yards, and Trevor Etienne was one of them. I believe Malik Davis was one, and surprisingly, Dameon Pierce wasn't, but he did get more carries towards the end, and obviously, Dameon Pierce was a solid running back. I'm really excited. I would say I'm excited for both, but like what you got out of ETN just as a freshman, and you're seeing film and videos of him being how faster he's gotten and everything. I'm really, really excited for him too. So yeah, man, that 1-2 punch you got at running back, of course, Montrell Johnson, then very north-south runner there. Man, I'm excited for it, man. And you see ETN when he's got 3 guys trying to tackle him, he's able to wiggle his way out and still get first downs. And it's a good 1-2 punch to have, especially with Montrell Johnson. If you need those extra 2 to 3 yards, I mean, he can get them for you. He can hit the hole really fast too. So he can run off 20, 30 yard runs as well. So yeah, man, that's probably one of the best running back duos probably nationally.
Yeah, it's not getting enough credit, I don't think, right now early on, but that's okay. I don't mind it. I like being the underdogs and having that chip on the shoulder, like Jaden Hill mentioned earlier. So I love it. Moving on to wide receiver room, which is going to be, a fun one and an exciting one to watch this season, especially with, the criticism to what the room was last year. It's brand new outside of Ricky Pearsall, right? Obviously, Jaquavion Frazier, he's gonna get a nod here. We'll see in a minute. And he was a dark night for me last year when we talked about guys that who do we expect to do pretty well. Frazier's was a guy that I liked a lot. He didn't. I think he had some injuries towards the end of the year, but I'm excited to see what he's able to do. But a big one that is getting the nod is Caleb Douglas. He's getting the starting nod right now, and I love that. With falling behind him in Marcus Burke and Khalil Jacks, I love seeing Caleb getting the start here. I mean, we saw him at the spring game. Big kid, tall, lengthy man. And I was excited for him. We were able to pick him up in the recruiting class. So really excited to see what he's going to be able to do. Dave?
Yeah, Caleb Douglas was interesting. He came in, towards the end of the season. Obviously, there were some injuries there, and he made some plays. I mean, he was wide open. He had some explosives as well. We really haven't seen much from Caleb Douglas at all. So and now it's his time, man. I mean, and you got these incoming freshmen, wide receivers coming in, obviously with the speed and all that, but you need some experience, and he's one of the experienced wide receivers over there. And then, of course, you got Jaquavion Frazier's. He's made some plays, obviously, in the spring game. You've seen it. You haven't really seen it much on the field. I don't think he's really gotten on the field during the season that much. But man, I mean, anytime that you've seen Frazier's like on the field, he's made a pretty good play. So you don't really know what you're getting out of those two. But of course, I've seen you've added Ricky Pearsall, but I don't know if you want to talk about him or not, but we can get into him too because we all know what we expect from Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, I got Ricky and Jaquavion. I kind of already popped them in there just to so you can see what the wide receiver starting core looks like. They've got Aiden and Andy Jean backing up Jaquavion Frazier's. So I think that wide receiver spot's going to be pretty flexible on what you're able to see plug in there and see the just kind of who's going to take over. I think Aiden Mazzell is going to bring a speed and just kind of an electric pop to the offense. So that's going to be great to see. And then look, Ricky, we interviewed him, I believe a few months ago, and he talked about the injuries that he dealt with towards the end of the season with a foot injury. And obviously he's healthy and good to go now. So I'm excited to see what he's able to do. He's on a revenge tour coming back. Could have went pro, chose not to. Felt that some of the things that they wrote negatively about him, he felt, hey, I can do these things great. I know I can. So I need to come back and overturn what they said about me. So, again, we got a guy on a revenge tour. We've got two guys trying to make a name for themselves. The team that's surrounding this quarterback and this running back core is extremely hungry and motivated. And I think what's going to be important here for these guys, especially these wide receivers, is just staying confident, right? Getting through those games, getting through that week one. Something that we are not having to deal with that we dealt with last year, I kept calling it the gauntlet, was we never had a game that they could get settled in until I think it was USF. But at that point, man, it was up and down. It was a roller coaster, right? We at least get, I don't know who the team is, but it's Jacksonville State week 2. So if we get through Utah, we're able to follow up on the week 2 and have a very confident, exciting game before Tennessee, which we did not have last year. So really excited for that week 1 lineup. Following the wide receivers, we got to go to tight end spot, which is Xanders is getting the nod right now. Obviously, Keon Zip, who's Holly's favorite player, it went down with an injury. We won't see him at all this year, is my understanding, but I believe he does get a year. And then Arlos Boardingham, who I'm ecstatic about, and Jonathan Odom as well, being the backups. I would love to see a two-man tandem with the tight ends, especially with Boardingham on the other side. And I think we will probably see more of that this year with a heavy run game. I could be wrong, but I think we might see that more so than what we realize. Dave?
Yeah, man, it's really interesting with Arliss Boardingham because you heard a lot of the opinions and some of the some what people have seen earlier in some of the camps, and he's just popped off. I mean, like he's looked very very productive from what I've heard. And I know I didn't get to talk about Ricky Pearsall earlier. I'll go ahead and talk about him real quick. I did a stat on like the receivers who have caught over 600 yards and averaged 19 yards or more per reception. And there was only 2 over the past decade. It was him and Antonio Callaway. And you know what Antonio Callaway was able to do when he was here? Imagine what you can get out of Ricky Pearsall without injury if he's fully healthy and he stays fully healthy throughout the year too. So, that tight end position though, man, I mean, especially with Keon being out, I mean, you're going to have to rely on some guys that you don't normally see on the field. And, with Jonathan Odom and Dante Zanders, now you have Arliss Boardingham, who's been making all these kind of plays in practice. So I'll be interested to see who they roll out there. I'm sure they'll roll out somebody that's more experienced, but you might see some Arliss this year too.
Steve, you got any thoughts?
Look, I mean, yeah, you're right. My favorite player on the Florida side of the sideline is Zipper. I've always been a fan of that kid. But yeah, it sucks to see him out. But what I do think that's going to force is a more blocking capable type of tight end out there. I think you're going to see less of the athletic. Not saying that these kids are not athletic, but I think you're going to see less of a Kyle Pitts and more of a potentially a faster, more fluid tackle, somebody that could step outside. Again, you're going to rely on the running game. You're going to rely on the running game significantly with the two-headed monster that you have. The other piece of this is, I would kind of going back to the wide receivers, is Ricky Pearsall, I believe, is a good blocker. But the other part of this is, how are these other new guys? Are they going to be able to block on the perimeter? If there's a sweep and you get one of these running backs of yours that's going to be able to find a lane, how well are these guys able to seal that edge? So look, I mean, between what you're going to have to work with now with Zipper being down, and I think that takes away a little bit of the passing game, but knowing that your strength is the heavy power running game. How does the tight end and the wide receiver now complement one another in order to open up some of those running lanes that Montrell and Etienne are going to need?
I think that's what you're going to notice with, again, Aiden Mazzell and those guys, the younger guys, not getting the start due to learning the ability to block and do those things. Sure. Where Frazier's and Douglas is a pretty big frame dude from when we saw him at the game. So that's a good point too. Again, why we're seeing who is getting the nod and who is getting the start. So look, really excited for that offensive side and who's going to get the start for a wide receiver. I think there's a lot of talent, a lot of weapons available. So it's going to be exciting. Moving on to the offensive line. We've got, I'm just going to rip them off here and then we'll kind of talk about it as a whole. But obviously at left tackle, we're going to have Austin Barber. Let me find his name here, and then I'll plug him in so you can see him. And then you're going to have at left guard, they've got Micah. So obviously he was, in that weird situation where he was going to leave and be injured. But again, according to this article, he's thinking he'll probably be able to, get through after, he'll be sidelined for camp, but looks to get the nod early on. Then Kingsley at center. Don't forget now, during the spring game, Big Rod was the center, which he's been practicing. I've been seeing clips of him rocking that center position, but there's a lot of question marks, a lot of, what's happening with that O-line, but Kingsley was out, I believe Zook was out, and I want to say Richie Leonard was out too. Is that right, Dave? Am I right on that, saying that? And then Damian George at right tackle.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I mean, as far as offensive line, obviously you got a lot of pieces from the portal that are exciting, and you kind of know what you're getting from them. The biggest guy that they got was Mazuka, and he was hurt, but he's expected to still start this year. I mean, he's healed up from that injury. I'm sure. I think I've heard he's already. I mean, he'll be available for practice. So that's a good thing. So getting him back, and then you have all the other pieces there on the offensive line as well, along with Austin Barber, who's been there. He's an experienced guy as well. The offensive line could drop off, or it may not. I mean, we don't know that. You go back, you watch the spring game. There was a lot of dialed up blitzes, and I don't look too much far into the spring games, but they were still able to get some run out of the running backs as well. So that's a good sign when you have an aggressive defense and you have an offensive line that can still get some push to get some running backs some room. And obviously Mazuka wasn't playing in that spring game, so you obviously don't know what you're going to get from him too. So as long as these guys stay healthy on this offensive line, I'm not worried about the offensive line production.
Yeah, I'm excited for the O-linemen. At backups, they've got Jordan Herman at left tackle. Farmer, who's also coming off an injury. No, it's Cameron Waits, who's coming off an injury. They've got him backing up at right guard. And then Keontae Goodwin at right tackle. I'm excited about Keontae Goodwin coming from Kentucky. It's a big boy coming in from that offensive line. So, and Jake Slaughter backing up as a center. So they don't even have Big Rod on this lineup right now. He's probably obviously a little bit deeper in that offensive tackle. So, look, not a horrible thing. That just means also too. What's my man from IMG? Can't think of his name at the moment, but a lot of freshmen aren't on this list. So a lot of big guys that aren't. Go ahead. I thought you said something.
Well, I'm delayed. I meant to say Najee Harris.
Najee, there it is. I'm drawing a blank here. But yeah, look, good stuff there. Now let's move